An entire nation is marked for execution, and the only person who can save them is a young woman trapped in a royal harem. But she has a terrifying secret. If the king finds out who she really is, she won't just lose her crown, she will lose her life. What happened in the palace of Susa 2,500 years ago wasn't just a political game. It was a heart-stopping race against time, where one wrong word meant absolute destruction. The year is around 480 BC. We are inside the massive, glittering winter palace of the Persian Empire. This superpower rules over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Egypt. The atmosphere is thick with wealth, heavy wine, and dangerous palace politics. King Xerxes rules here with absolute, terrifying power. In this court, a single bad mood from the king means a death sentence for anyone nearby. Into this world of luxury and danger steps Hadassah, a young Jewish orphan. She has no power, no family status, and no wealth. But she has incredible beauty. When King Xerxes removes his old queen in a fit of rage, he orders a search across the empire for a replacement. Hadassah is dragged away from her home and into the palace harem. Her wise cousin Mordecai gives her a strict, urgent warning. Do not tell anyone you are a Jew. He gives her a new name to hide her identity, Esther. King Xerxes falls in love with her and places the royal crown on her head, completely unaware of who she truly is. But her secret is a ticking time bomb, and historians still disagree on what truly caused the king to overlook her unknown background. With Esther hiding her identity on the throne, life in the palace seems secure. But every great drama needs a villain, and this one is pure evil. His name is Haman. He is a ruthless, power-hungry politician who rises through the ranks until King Xerxes makes him the prime minister, the second most powerful man in the entire world. Haman demands supreme respect. A royal decree is passed forcing everyone in the empire to bow down and worship him whenever he walks through the city streets. Thousands fall to their knees in fear, but there is one man who stands completely still. Mordecai, Esther's cousin, refuses to bow. He answers only to his faith, and he will not worship a man. When Haman notices this silent rebellion, his blood boils. Furious and blinded by pride, Haman decides that killing Mordecai alone isn't enough to satisfy his rage. He wants a punishment so brutal it will shock the ancient world. He decides to destroy Mordecai's entire ancestry. But Haman has no idea he is targeting the family of the queen herself. And skeptics still wonder if a single ego could truly trigger the destruction of millions. Blinded by hatred, Haman plots his mass slaughter. He approaches King Xerxes with a brilliant lie, telling him there is a strange, rebellious group of people scattered across the provinces who do not obey the royal laws. He claims they are a threat to the empire and offers to pay an enormous fortune into the royal treasury to have them wiped out. The king, careless and trusting, slides his official signet ring off his finger and hands it to Haman, giving him absolute power to do as he wishes. Haman writes an unchangeable royal decree. On a single day, every Jewish man, woman, and child across the empire is to be violently executed. To pick the perfect date for the massacre, Haman casts lots, an ancient form of rolling dice known as pur. The date is set. The official riders gallop out to every corner of the superpower, spreading the terrifying news. The countdown to total destruction begins. When Mordecai hears the decree, he tears his clothes, puts on sackcloth and ashes, and cries out in the streets. The news hits the palace doors like a wave, and historians still debate how the queen managed to stay completely blind to the horror happening just outside her walls. Inside the palace, Queen Esther is horrified to hear that her cousin Mordecai is crying at the city gates. She sends her trusted servant to find out what is wrong. Mordecai sends back a copy of the death decree, along with a desperate command. Esther must go directly to King Xerxes, reveal her identity, and beg for her people's lives. But Esther sends back a message of pure panic. She reminds Mordecai of the strict law of the empire. Anyone, even the queen, who approaches the king in the inner court without an invitation is instantly executed on the spot. The only exception is if the king holds out his golden scepter to spare their life. Esther hasn't been called into the king's presence for 30 days. To walk in uninvited is a suicide mission. Mordecai fires back with words that shake her to the core, warning her that she will not escape the slaughter just because she lives in a palace. He tells her, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther realizes she cannot hide any longer. She makes her choice. She asks all her people to fast and pray with her for 3 days and 3 nights, declaring her final, terrifying decision. "If I perish, I perish." She prepares to walk into the jaws of death, but historians still argue whether she genuinely expected to survive past the threshold of the throne room. On the 3rd day of fasting, the time for hiding is over. Queen Esther bathes, puts on her finest royal robes, and stands in the inner court of the palace, directly facing the throne. King Xerxes sits on his high seat, surrounded by armed guards. He looks up and sees her standing there, uninvited. By law, the guards should execute her instantly. The tension in the room is suffocating, but as the king looks at Esther, his expression softens. He extends his golden scepter toward her, sparing her life. Esther steps forward and touches the tip of the scepter. Relieved, the king asks, "What is your request, Queen Esther? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." Instead of blurting out her secret and accusing the prime minister right away, Esther plays a brilliant, slow, psychological game. She simply requests that the king and Haman come to a private, intimate banquet that very night. The king agrees, and Haman rushes to the dinner, bursting with pride. At the banquet, the king asks again what she truly wants. But Esther delays a second time, inviting them back for another private banquet the following evening. Haman leaves the palace walking on air, feeling completely untouchable. But a hidden trap is already closing around him, and skeptics still wonder if he had any idea his sudden fame was actually his death sentence. Haman leaves the queen's banquet feeling like a god, but as he passes through the palace gates, his joy turns to pure rage. Mordecai is there, and once again, he refuses to bow. Haman rushes home to his wife and friends, boasting about his incredible wealth and how the queen invited only him to dine with the king. "But all of this gives me no satisfaction," Haman fumes, "as long as I see that Jew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate." His wife suggests a brutal solution. Build a massive gallows, 75 feet high, and ask the king the very next morning to hang Mordecai on it. Haman loves the idea and orders the gallows to be built immediately. But that very same night, miles away in the royal bedroom, the king cannot sleep. To pass the time, he orders the official royal history books to be brought in and read to him. As the scribe reads through the records, the king discovers a shocking, forgotten file. Years earlier, Mordecai had exposed a bloody assassination plot against the king, saving his life. The king stops the reader and asks, "What honor or reward has been given to Mordecai for this?" The servants reply, "Nothing has been done for him." The sun begins to rise, and historians still marvel at the unbelievable, razor-thin timing of what happened next in the early morning light. In the marble heart of Susa, Haman strode toward the king's courtyard, ready to ask for Mordecai's death. But the king had not slept. His ledger had been opened. His unpaid debt to Mordecai was waiting in the dark. Then came the question that shattered Haman's fate. What should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Haman's pride leapt first. He imagined robes from the royal chamber, the king's own horse, and a procession led by the highest prince in the empire. He spoke like a man already crowned. Then the blade fell. Go at once. Do exactly that for Mordecai the Jew. The man who came to destroy his enemy became his herald instead, riding through the streets of Susa, forced to shout his praise to a roaring city. By sunset, Haman was home in tears, and the guards were already at his door. Pride writes the script. Humiliation always gets the final line.
Now comes the ultimate climax of the second banquet. The wine is poured, and King Xerxes looks at Esther for a third time, demanding, "What is your request? It will be granted." The trap snaps shut. Esther looks the king in the eye and begs for her life and the lives of her people. She reveals the horrifying truth. We have been sold for destruction, to be slaughtered and annihilated. The king is stunned and furious, shouting, "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther stands up, points her finger directly across the table and declares, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Haman pales with terror. The king storms out into the palace garden in a blind rage. Terrified for his life, Haman lunges toward Queen Esther, falling onto her couch to beg for mercy just as the king walks back into the room. The king sees him and screams, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" The guards instantly cover Haman's face. A servant speaks up, mentioning the 75-foot gallows Haman just built for Mordecai. The king roars, "Hang him on it!" Haman is dragged away and executed on his own trap. The death decree is countered, the Jewish people are given the right to defend themselves, and Mordecai is promoted to prime minister. A young orphan girl used her wits, courage, and a hidden identity to completely rewrite history. But historians and skeptics still look closely at the ancient text, noticing a strange, eerie detail. The name of God is never mentioned even once in the entire book. Was it all just a series of brilliant, lucky coincidences? Or was an invisible hand quietly moving the pieces in the dark all along? The palace of Susa is now in ruins, but the ancient debate still continues on what truly caused the survival of Esther's people.